is up, guys? Eric from AndroidSyndicate.com here, and I'm excited to bring you a brand new video. In this one, we're going to be going over the relative layout. So a relative layout is just what it sounds like. It displays views relative to another. So some of the essential things to go over first, if we go over here to our XML, is that every relative layout is started by these little tags here, the relative layout. And something essential that every relative layout must have is the layout width and the layout height. And this tells Android how big you want this relative layout to be. And as you can see here, it says match parent. And this is going to make it as big as the parent layout. In our case, it's going to fill the entire screen here. Some other things that you might want to put in these attributes is wrap content, and that will make the view as big as necessary to fill all the views that you have. Moving right along here, you can see that we have these Android padding attributes here, and you can see that they are 32 dp, and what dp means is it's density independent pixels. So that way it doesn't matter what device you're using, it scales independently of screen size. And as you see here, it is 32 dp. And to demonstrate that, if we go over here to the design view, if we grab a button widget and pull it over, we can clearly see along the edges here that there's some padding where we can't place a widget, and that is implemented by this padding bottom and padding left, and that makes a little border around our relative layout in which all our views must be placed. One of the great features of using a relative layout is that you can place widgets independently of screens. So let's say, for instance, we wanted to have this button located right here in our top right. Now, regardless of what screen size or orientation we have, this button will always appear in the top right corner of your window. And if we go over here to the text view, we can see over here we have our button widget placed, and we can see that align parent top is true, so it's aligned to the top of the view here. As we can see, the little arrows pointing to the top, and we can see that the align parent right is set to true, and that's right over here, the arrows pointing to the right. So every screen, every device, this button is going to be located in the top right hand corner. Not only can you place your buttons relative to the parent layout, you can also place them relative to a sibling. Say, for instance, we had this button here located in the middle of the screen, and we'd like a button to always appear directly below that one. So if we drag this, we can see that it is now located underneath this button, but if we go ahead and go to the text view once again, we can see that it's aligned underneath button 3. And something that we can do to make this a little bit more clear is we can change this ID here. In order to position a view relative to another view, the view you're using as an anchor must be given an ID using the Android ID attribute. And as we can see here, ours is defaulted to button 3, but we may want to change that to make it a little bit more clear. So for instance, we can name it top button. And that would essentially say that, hey, this is our top button here. But as you can see, when we change the ID, all the views that is positioned relative to it are now displaced. So I'm going to give you a pro tip here. If we go over here to our properties palette, if we click a button, we can simply change the ID right here. So we have our top button now, and we can change this to the bottom button. And when we press enter, it'll go ahead and change that, and it will change everything that it's tied to. So we now see that it's placed below the top button, and it's also aligned to the left of the top button. And what this align left here means is that the left edge of the lower button is going to be aligned to the left edge of the top button. Another useful technique is to use margins to add distance between views. So let's say, for instance, that we wanted this bottom button to be further down the screen than it currently is. We can use a property known as margins. There are 4 margins for each direction, and it indicates how much space to have between that view and another. As we can see here, it already has a margin of 34, but let's increase that and see what happens. Let's set it to 75 and come back over to the design view, and we can see clearly that the button moves further down. If we remove the margin on the top, let's take a look. There is currently no margin, so we can use the margins to increase the distance between 2 different views. Hope this introduction to relative layouts was helpful. If you'd like to see the full written guide, please visit my blog at www.androidsyndicate.com. If you like this content, please consider subscribing. I'm going to be creating new Android guides every week.